Dear students, today we are going to discuss genetic terminology. In my opinion, to learn any subjects, first of all, we should clear all the terms which we use in that particular subject. So, today we are starting the new subject, and first of all, we will discuss genetic terminology. Now, come to the point, what is genetics? If we will discuss, then we will find out the first point is the genetics term is discovered, or you can say is derived from the Greek word geneticos, or we can say it is from the word genitive, and which later on forms the word genesis. And you all know that the meaning of genesis is the origin. Now, when we are saying genetics, so how you will define the term genetics? It is the biological science which deals with the mechanism of heredity and causes of variations in living beings and is known as genetics. Now, come to the point, what is the mechanism of heredity? The mechanism of heredity means how the characters are transferring from one generation to the another generation, or you can say from the parents how you are going to have your features or the characters. Now, causes of variation, what does it mean? It means that when the characters get inherited from one generation to the another generation, in that process or after the completion of that process, that is the inheritance, how you just find out the variations among the individual of a same generation. So you can find out the difference between the brothers and sisters, or you can find out the difference between the two males and the two females of the same generation. So, genetics is the science which deals with the mechanism of heredity and causes of variations. Or, in a very simplified way, we can say that it is a science of genes, heredity, and variation in the living organism. Now, come to the very important aspect, that is gene. In genetics, we are discussing how the characters are inheriting from one generation to the another generation. So, because of the gene, the characters get inherited from one generation to the another, and that's why this is called as the functional unit or the hereditary unit of an individual. Or you can say the genes are the carriers of the traits from one generation to the another generation. In a broader sense, we can say genes are these small stretches or the segments of the DNA. Later on, when we will discuss some other aspect, we will discuss it in very much detail. It is one of the very important aspects. Now, we are telling it is a functional unit, hereditary unit, and more precisely, the gene is the small stretch of the DNA. Now, the another term which we use frequently in genetics is the allele. Now, to know what is allele, you just be very much clear about some various aspects. As you all know that each gene is responsible for the expression of trait. Here the term trait means character. For example, if I am having brown color of hair, this is a trait. Black color of eyes, it is again a trait. So for the expression of the brown color of hair and the black color of eyes, there is a gene responsible. Now, the another aspect is each trait is present in its true form or more than two form, which will be discussed later. But first of all, we will come with one aspect that each trait is present in two form. For example, as you seen below, the length of the stem. Now, it is clear whether the stem will be tall or it will be dwarf. So, what is the trait? The trait is length of the stem. and the trait is present in two forms. Which are these two forms? Tall and the dwarf. So the another is important thing is that in these two forms, one is the dominant one and another is the recessive one. So what we are saying, the alternative form of a gene is called as allele. Means to say that length of the stem is a character, it is a trait, it is present in two forms, tall and dwarf. And we are saying when there is a gene for the tall, that is capital T, its alternative form, that is small t or the dwarf one, is called as its allele. Now, the related aspect with the allele is homozygous and heterozygous. As you all know, that each gene is carrying its allele. As we discussed earlier, the trait is length of the stem. The forms are tall and dwarf. For example, if there is a gene for the tallness, capital T, its allele is small t. If there is gene for dwarfness, that is small t, its allele is capital T. Now, the point is, when both the alleles are similar, the condition will be homozygous. Like length of the stem, tall and dwarf. If both the alleles, you can find out here capital T or small t, both the alleles are similar. So this condition is called as homozygous condition or the homozygous, or you can say the alleles are present in the homozygous state, both the alleles are similar. Now, when the alleles are different, the condition will be heterozygous. You can find out one is capital T and another is small t. In the example, again, length of the stem, tall and dwarf. One allele is for the tallness and another allele is for the dwarfness. So, both the alleles are different. Different means heterozygous, similar means homozygous, whether it is the dominant one or it is the recessive one. Another interesting aspect is the phenotype. Phenotype is physical appearance of the individual, or you can just find out, you can just say that how we are recognizing you, means by visualizing, by analyzing your physical traits or physical appearance, means your complexion is whitish, your hair is black, your eye color is brown. So all these characteristics are all together showing your physical appearance. So physical appearance is the phenotype of the individual. Now, the trait, what we are discussing, we are taking the simple example, length of the stem. Simple. There is a plant, we are discussing one feature, that is stem, and we are finding the length of the stem. Length of the stem is present in two forms, that is tall and dwarf. We can easily see that what is the length, whether it is tall or it is dwarf. So we can find out that the length of the stem is tall and someone will find out the length of the stem will dwarf. So this is showing the phenotype of that particular individual. Now, the point is, there is capital T or capital T small t. From this constitution, we can find out that there is a gene capital T which is present in the homozygous state. So the individual is tall in nature. And the another aspect, there is capital T along with small t. Capital T is dominant over small t, and again the individual will be tall. When small t, that is the gene for the dwarfness, is present twice, or both the alleles are similar in nature, then we can say the individual is dwarf, or the physical appearance of that individual is dwarf. So we can find out with the presence of the gene for each and every individual what is the phenotype of that particular individual. The another term is the genotype. Genotype is the genetic makeup or the genetic constitution of the individual. Now, what does it mean? Again, we are taking the same example, length of the stem, tall and dwarf. The gene for the tallness is capital T, and you all know that the gene for the dwarfness is small t. So, capital T will be homozygous tall. Now, here what we are defining, just make it clear. We are not saying that the individual is tall and the dwarf. We are finding what is the constitution of the gene in this particular individual. When capital T and capital T is present, it is homozygous tall. When capital T, small t is present, it is heterozygous tall, and when small t is present, it will be homozygous dwarf. This is showing the genetic makeup of the individual, how the genes are defining each and every characteristic of the individual, whether the genes are present along with its allele in the homozygous state or in the heterozygous state. It is showing with the help of genotype. Now, there is a confusion with the term cross. Now, in the genetic terminology, we are saying the cross. You just find out in the last line, there is A and B and there is a cross. What this cross is signifying? This cross is signifying that there is a breeding between the two individuals. Now, when we are discussing plants, we are saying it is the breeding, or you can say the hybridization between the two individuals. Or when we are talking about animals, again the term is breeding, or you can say the mating between the two individuals takes place. Now, more precisely, there is a confusion among the students when they are writing P. P is signifying the parental generation, means the generation of the parents from which the offsprings are derived. Now, again, as you all know, that for the breeding, for the sexual reproduction, we need male and the female individuals. You can find out capital A is signifying female and capital B is signifying male. So, maternal side is the mother sides or the female, and paternal side is the father side or the male. But all together, this is making the parental generation. When there is a crossing between the two individuals is occurring, after that we are getting the next generation or the first generation or the hybrids from the parents. So, parental generation is known, is designated, or it is shown with the help of symbol, that is P. For the female and male, we are again using the symbols, as you all know. These are the symbols for the, that is A. We are showing with the circle and the plus, and the circle and the arrow. These are the symbols for the maternal and paternal individuals. Now, the another term which we use in the genetics, that is the reciprocal cross. In the above experiment, in the previous slide, you just find out the cross is the breeding between the two individuals, right? Now, what is the difference between the cross and the reciprocal cross? In the cross, we used to take capital A as a female and capital B as a male. But in reciprocal cross, we are using B as a female and A as a male. What we used to do? We used to revert the individual. Now the B turns into the female and A turns into the male. So this cross is called as the reciprocal cross, and the mating in all the hybridization experiments will be done in the same way. So the cross and the reciprocal cross, I think you will understand now. Now, as we discussed, P stands for parental generation. Now, what is the meaning of F or F1 or F2? F stands for filial generation. Filial word comes from filin. Filin means son or the next generation. What we are doing in genetics, we are taking the two individual. One is the female and another is the male. The breeding is done between the two individual. We are getting the next generation. So how you will pronounce the next generation? The first generation will be called as F1, first filial generation, and F2 is the second filial generation. And in the same way, we can proceed like F3, F4 and so on, up to which extent we are proceeding. So we will consider the next generation in the same way. So F stands for the filial generation or the next generation. Now, there is the another aspect. We have discussed the cross, reciprocal cross. Now, what we are saying, monohybrid cross. A cross between the two individuals having different form or variety of the characteristics. You just find out. We have discussed this particular example in our previous slides, from which you can find out capital T. Now, just I am telling you that capital T, this is what? This is homozygous tall, and small t, that is the homozygous dwarf. The point is, we are having a character, that is the length of the stem. Length of the stem is having two different forms. The character is one, but it is different in the form or the variety. Means length of the stem is present in the two variety. One is the tall and another is the dwarf. So when we are doing a cross by taking a single characteristic which is differing in two different forms, and we obtain the F1 hybrid, then this is called as monohybrid cross. More precisely, the monohybrid cross is a cross in which the parents, the male and female parents, are having one characteristic with two different forms, and after breeding we are getting the hybrid which is differing for a single characteristic or the mono characteristics, then this is called as monohybrid. In this cross, the individual which we are getting in F1 generation is having the combination of a single characteristic which is varying in two different forms. So this is called as monohybrid cross. Now dihybrid cross. But obvious, we are doing the breeding experiments. We need two individuals, but here we have to take the two different characteristics. You just find out with the example seed shape and the seed color. What is the previous experiment or the previous cross? Previous cross is saying we are taking one character, that was the length of the stem. Similarly here, seed shape, it is round and wrinkled. But in dihybrid cross, we are taking two different characteristics, and each characteristic is varying in its form, and when we receive the F1 generation, then this particular F1 hybrid will have the combination of two different forms, two different character with the varying forms. Then this is called as dihybrid cross. I hope these terminology will certainly help you to understand the basic concept of the genetics, and later on we will discuss some another important terms which we use in the genetics.